50 need his ass whooped, and I can't wait.
Hip hop was a monster.
There is another speaker that had a speech that was completely whitewashed and edited out because he said free Palestine at the end of it. They didn't do that for the racial slur though.
Like, somebody calls me with a hard ER, it almost makes me laugh.
Uncle Luke announced he is running for Congress.
Oh man.
Now listen. Welcome to What Just Happened. I'm your host, Skoob. This is the show where we unpack the week of all the ridiculous things that's going on. Obviously, y'all know the times that we're in, so it's ridiculous things that happen literally every day. Along with me for this ride, we got the lovely, multi-hyphenate creative, Alexa.
Hey.
A little applause, a little light applause. And then we got my man, MC, Ronnie Romance on the weekends. My man, Cass.
What's good, man? For sure.
Stand-up comic extraordinaire, Rasheed J.
Let's go.
All right. So we are now out of Black History Month, unfortunately.
Right.
It's over. But we're going to co-op March. How about that? We're going to take over March too.
I'm not mad at that.
To kick it off, or kind of tail end of Black History, we got 50 versus T.I. Now these guys started supposedly doing the verses, and it's turned sideways now.
Yeah.
It's not going to be about the music anymore. Now it's memes. But on the Harris family side, it is still about the music. Mm-hmm. What do y'all feel about this? Because everybody in their family is dissing 50 now.
Mm-hmm.
I think 50 need his ass whooped. Can we curse?
We were just talking shit.
50 need his ass whooped, and
right.
I can't wait. I really do feel like all the Harris sons need to come together, they need to jump him.
Yeah.
And they also need to call Carissa Shields and have her get her licks in too. Carissa Shields will whoop 50 Cent's ass. But I say all that to say, like, 50 is always, he played too many internet games for me, especially for a man of his age and his financial and business acumen. Like, I'm not saying you can't have a little fun online, but he do too much. Like, if it's about the music, let it be about the music.
Yeah, that's
like,
a fact.
you know what I'm saying? You're
That's
50
a fact.
Cent. Why are you bring people's wives in the equation? And one thing 50 likes to do is, I just don't know if 50 even likes women for real. Because the way that he treats women, especially in the limelight, especially when he involves them in his little petty antics, it's not good. It gives me a bad feeling. And I'm not saying he only does women, because he does come for men's necks too all the time. He don't discriminate. Mm-hmm. But this had nothing to do with T.I.'s wife. So you bringing her in by posting a picture of her. We all know how T.I.'s wife looks. You're being shady and you need your ass whooped now. Yeah. Somebody need to beat you up. All of the sons need to get together and need to jump him, because he's too protected. He goes around doing this all the freaking time, and somebody needs to slap the shit out of him.
I think 50 like women.
When I say don't like
women, he don't want to meme up next week about him.
He's attracted to women. I don't think he genuinely likes them. I mean, 50, where's your wife?
Heard you.
Where's your wife? At your age, where's your wife? You can't hold down a girlfriend for longer than a year or so. Like, something is
Chelsea
wrong.
Handler said that 50 was a great lover. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, he got... Okay, so he packing. Like, big deal.
Like lover. No, not fucker, lover. Like roses and romance.
So
and like
where's the wife?
Do we really think he did all of that for Chelsea Handler, or just knocked the sonic rings out?
I 100% do. I think you're a little bit angry at 50. Just to be frank, I think the industry is very tough on men. Period.
Oh, for sure.
That's a period. I think at current moment,
actually,
the
this is
industry
going
is wild,
go
tough
left,
on men.
For sure.
Right? I feel that way. Like, you ain't gotta work. But if we said the same, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, I think 50 has become a master of branding, and I think Donald
100%.
Trump is a master of branding. So I think. I think you got to look at those two things, and there's a world in America that we currently live in that the truth don't matter anymore. It's ideology and hype.
Very true.
Right? We're on a podcast because it's ideology and hype, and 50 is keeping himself in the notion. That is a 2005 artist that is the most relevant rapper right now, and we ain't heard no new music in a long time. Yeah. And I think his plan is extremely calculated.
I actually read the 50 just dropped a book not too long ago, Hustle Smarter, Hustle Harder. Mm-hmm. And there was a quote that he said in there he basically said, if we can't be friends, let's be enemies. And I like what he said in relevance to he was going at like Jay, he was going at Diddy.
Always going to Jay.
Right. But obviously two guys that are like a little bit further than him.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So kind of like fighting up. And I didn't like how he did this one, which is let's just get to the music, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I thought it was OD disrespectful bringing up his T.I.'s wife.
Yeah.
If you did not want to do the verses, just say,
Just
hey,
say no.
bro,
Yeah.
I don't want to do the verses.
Right.
And then we could have kind of moved on.
Mhm.
But the fact that we're still here and now we are actually diving more into 50's catalog. Now, let's be very clear. Like, that burst of energy with Get Rich or Die Trying was amazing.
Right.
And all of like the group projects, the mixtapes. Like, if we talking about the actual music for a certain standpoint, it was phenomenal. But whereas we have somebody like T.I. who has an extensive career, and when you kind of start looking at the records, it's not that far off. Like, yes, he sold. Like, I know 50's really going off of the idea, like, yo, I went X amount of Z times platinum, beautiful. And then when you start to look at why you actually could have went also platinum, which was, it was surrounded by some negative shit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So at his core is like always, like he's been doing, like, I hate that he's been disrespectful, but he's actually the same person that he was years ago. Like How to Rob.
But that's the issue, though.
That is the issue, and I feel like nothing you said had any would justify the way he acts. I'm sorry. I love that he says business acumen.
Yeah.
I love what he's doing in acting and producing,
Yeah.
writing books.
But
Like, he
how
knows
he acts
he's
is crazy.
a mogul. He knows
Yeah,
how to
yeah.
be a businessman, but that has nothing to do with the antics
Yeah.
that he partakes in on the internet.
Yeah.
And you're involving people's wives and families that have said nothing to you, done nothing to you, and now you are shaming her in a public life. You have millions of followers. What that doesn't help your cause at all. You can still be 50 Cent
incorrect.
and still get this
1,000,000%.
money without
Doing
hosting
that.
I can
somebody's
name
wife
30 rappers.
for everyone to talk shit
I can
about.
name 30 rappers that you ain't talking about no more. Right? And right
He
now,
don't
in
need to
this,
do that to get
But
talked
yeah,
about.
so the
He
deal
don't.
is-
So here,
He
let
don't.
me be
To
clear.
that
Let me
point,
be
you
clear.
don't need to post something to talk
I
about.
am sick of rap beef. Me personally. Okay.
Okay.
I'm getting very sick of rap beef. I think the Drake Kendrick thing actually hurt us. To be very
Really?
frank.
I do too.
1,010%.
I do too.
I'm a full believer that Drake versus Kendrick put us in this situation where black people were on top, hip hop's on top, Jay-Z's on top, NFL's on top. Like, they wanted black content so bad, and now it feels like we on the Carnival Cruise and we fighting and they just watching us. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like they watching us fight in front of each other, and it's like, oh yeah, that's Serena, nigga.
Yeah.
And you like, yo, how much can we go at each other without realizing
Don't
that
always feel like that.
all them old songs,
Unfortunately.
if you look at 2010 and you look at Click and you look at a lot of these tracks where like 8 artists were on it,
Yeah.
and we were monsters,
Mm-hmm.
hip hop was a monster. Hip hop is now off the charts, right? Did it come back?
Well, we're
We'll
going to
get
come
there.
back to that
We'll
in a
get there.
second. Another one of the crazy stories that we heard recently is Paramount's acquisition of Warner Brothers. Billions of dollars thrown around. The deal isn't officially closed. It takes about 6 to 12 months. So it's possible that it may not close. But as of right now, that is the acquisition. The Ellison family has acquired this. They are a right-wing leaning family.
Right.
And this has a lot to do with the government, playing in parts in this. They acquire CNN, which is a huge deal. So they already got CBS. Now they got CNN. This is about to be a propaganda-filled country. So this is like something that is really bad.
Yeah.
Aside from the acquisition of movie franchises like DC, Transformers, Harry Potter. First off, can you imagine Donald Trump being in charge of, like, he is the Joker, for real, for real. So what do we think about this whole situation?
Yo, people always ask me like, yo, what happened like to TV, right? And I think that we all just stopped watching TV,
Right.
right? So the money left. So the capital left, so then a whole bunch of investors have come in and, Skydance bought our whole BT, MTV, all that sort of stuff. So it's become a capital gains thing, and I just did a talk in my college, and I was like, I wish someone would have went to 21-year-old me and been like, it's a business!
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a crit, it's a business!
Right.
Like when I used to fight, like, yo, I need another camera. Yo, we need the jet, right? When I was directing, I want 4 of these monitors, not one, right? If somebody would have just said to me it's a business, it would have happened. And I think there's always been some submersive thing in media whatsoever. But I think going back to our first conversation, I think that we got to mob up even more now. Like, I think, like, that's why I'm so mad about the hip hop beefs. Like, I'm getting kind of sick of it because the amount of money there's a lot of money in this motherfucker.
Right.
And if that money was at the boardroom instead of at clubs, and if we was really buying stuff up,
Got you.
we'd be able to launch a little
Got
bit
you.
harder because their money is good money and old. I think the difference is our money's new.
For sure.
The money that we have in this room is
For
new.
sure.
Well,
For sure.
racism has a whole lot to do with it.
100%. That's why it's new money.
100%.
That's why it's money. That's why it's
Because
new.
every single time black
Because we
people
couldn't
have
get money back then.
Yeah, but every time black people have accumulated wealth and started to kind of get ahead, white people came in and burned stuff down, and
For sure.
you got to start right back over.
Right,
so.
every time.
I mean,
It's part of the American story.
slavery is the only reason why the Ellison family has the money that they have.
Exactly.
Right?
Is that what
That's
that's
the
it?
only reason
Yeah.
why the Ellison family was able to do this deal because
Right.
of black people. But America's always been an oligarchy. This is just another example of that. There's only the top families own everything.
Right.
The top families control everything. Right? So now essentially it's not really like the small fries is like, oh, Ellison family, they own DC and they own Harry Potter now. And like that's the small potatoes. Like the real effect of this is generational. Like this is gonna shape generations' way of thinking, right? Because they've got CBS and CNN. You mentioned propaganda, and in order to like there's not going to be blatant conservative propaganda blasted across the news because they still have to hold on to viewership trust. Like they still have these are global news outlets, so they still have to have the trust of the people watching it, but they can definitely censor certain things. Like they can now they can promote and give attention to maybe more conservative topics, and then the other topics don't get airtime at all.
That's a fact. Yeah.
The executives they're going to hire are going to be more conservative leaning, so that affects who's going to be working in these news stations, who you're going to see on the screens. And then also on the Hollywood side of things, like Hollywood over generations shapes like morale, like it shapes like how we interpret historical events, right? Look at Disney. Disney has basically taught all young women that like romance is the highest thing you can achieve.
It is
like
though. Come on, chill.
You know what I mean?
okay to be in love.
Being a princess and getting rescued by a man is so. Oh my God, that's how my life's gonna be, and that's not. We all know that's not.
But is
the
it
case.
bad?
I'm saying that. No, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's misleading.
For sure.
And I say that to go back to my point that Hollywood controls like generational thinking. They control like what feels normal. So when you have this conservative family now owns not only Hollywood but also media, they're gonna be able to control what feels normal.
Yeah.
Like remember, let's real quick, Tyra Banks and Top Model. They just dropped that documentary.
I saw that.
Bashing her, and I mean, a lot of the stuff that was in that show was messed up. Like the stuff they were doing to them girls was like, whoa. But back then it felt normal.
100%.
Right?
Right. It was a part of the culture.
So what this acquisition is gonna do, it's gonna give the Ellison family the opportunity to shape what feels normal for the next generation and beyond.
Yeah.
Right.
And back to what you said, it's all about ownership. The only way that you circumvent this is getting together with your fellow Black people or people that you align with and owning your IP and building upwards from there, because you can't compete with these large media giants. But as an independent, you can create your own lane where they'll have to work with you or work around
For sure.
you.
So maybe that's the positive of all of this. Like clearly, like this is a big negative. It's gonna shape and shift culture in a way, but maybe it actually is the battery, in our backs to actually create something that we can own and that we're proud of. Like that's what I'm feeling. Like,
Well, I think racism had us be artists in this country. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Artists without the business model. And that's why, even I'm looking at your White Sox hat, like if you look at like NWA, like how their first deals with Jerry, like every story.
Right.
Every story. I did a documentary on Jay.
Right.
And the reason why I'm upset about the Jay Dame beef, I understand it, but the reason I'm upset about it is that Dame is the one who ran up in an office and was like, wait, no, reasonable doubt costs this much.
Yeah.
Right? Run it.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why Jay's rich. right? And that's how Jay got to Def and like, you know, like did all that where he like bought his catalog.
Yep.
Because we have to get better at business.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember that there was a white organization here called the Rockefellers and all these other families that were owning train lines and coal.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's insane.
You can't compete with that.
1860s money, like, because you know they tell you in college, right? Oh, you know, you take 10% and you could grow it over. Imagine having 400 years to
Yes,
grow your
to
money.
grow
That's
your money.
insane.
Right.
We've had 50 to
Right.
grow our money.
Right.
You know.
Very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's gonna be harder to find the HBO app again on your
They changed their name today? They changed the name again?
They going to.
Yeah.
So
On Max?
who knows
HBO?
what it's gonna be under
Oh,
now?
man.
Like it's gonna be under
It's
Paramount.
definitely
I guess.
gonna be like,
Paramount
yeah.
Plus.
Oh,
There ain't gonna be no
damn.
HBO app no more.
Damn.
And to close out Black History Month, we recently had an issue with the BAFTA ceremony
Yo.
where Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were on stage presenting an award, and a white man that has Tourette's yelled out a racial slur. You can guess
You saw
what that,
this?
the hard R,
Yeah.
at Delroy and Michael B. Jordan. You know, the excuse was made that it was a Tourette situation, et cetera, but even when they tried to apologize,
Right.
it made things worse. So, I mean, how do we... And here's the thing. The other kicker is BBC, they had an opportunity to edit that out because there is another speaker that had a speech that was completely whitewashed and edited out because he said free Palestine at the end of it.
Oh, got you.
They didn't do that for the racial slur, though.
Yeah.
So they made it okay to disrespect
Yeah.
us, but... you
It's
know.
the same story.
And this kind
over
of
and
goes
over.
with the Ellison situation that we're talking about censorship.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. If I had Tourette's and I was in a room full of white people,
You might say
I probably would have yelled
might say
cracker or like at some point too. But I say that to say, leave that man at home. Why the hell?
Yo, they
did you
have like
bring
a
that
back
man
room
there?
or something?
Yeah,
Like for the kids?
Put him
Listen.
backstage.
Yeah, hell
because
yeah.
okay, he was there because there was a film about Tourette's that was about him
Right.
that an actor starred in. So that's why he was there. But
Got
like,
it.
put him in the back, put him in the
Yeah,
closet.
Yeah.
Like, get him. He can't be a distraction. I understand you have Tourette's, but you can't be distraction.
Right.
Distraction the entire night. Like, come on.
Right.
Like,
I don't
come
know
on,
how
BC.
you-
like
how he just-
BAFTA.
yeah.
Get it together. Like,
Yeah.
How do you blurt out a racial slur, though? I understand Tourette's is a thing, but...
oh my God, you never.
I'm just trying to
You
figure
didn't
out.
see that show?
You
didn't
need
see
to
that
watch
TLC
shows
joint?
of people with Tourette's. They be saying the most wildest shit.
But is
Yeah,
it
but you
something
gotta say
that...
nigga?
Yeah, like...
Like,
is it
yeah.
the right thing?
Yes, they say
connected.
no.
It's
They say
connected.
they say everything. They
But
say
wouldn't it
everything.
be something
Yeah.
that's, you know, typically, you know, that you
Anything
speak about?
else, like
Listen.
every
Yeah.
and everything.
Like, that's
No,
so random
that's
to
not
me
how
to...
Tourette's works.
It's not
That's not how
random.
Tourette's works.
It's there's a lock in the brain that unlocks.
Yes,
So
yes.
you can be thinking the wildest shit, and
You're gonna say it.
No, I feel you. I feel
You
you.
know, y'all all have been in moments where there's something going on. It could be serious. It could just be
And your
normal. And in the back of your mind, you are thinking the wildest shit. Even if it has nothing to do with what's happening. You could be thinking about the girl you fucked last night.
Yeah, yeah.
You could be thinking about something you saw. The thing is, you don't say it. Right? You be thinking about that time where somebody breath sting and they was
Yeah.
spitting all over your face, but you don't say it
Yeah.
because you have a normal brain and
Right.
you know that right now I'm at church with my grandma.
Right.
People with Tourette's don't have that
But that's-
censorship.
Okay, so
That's
that's
fair.
what I'm.
They
That's
just-
what I'm. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, if I had Tourette's, I'm thinking like a woman walking. Damn, she got fat ass. That to me is
yeah,
what.
'cause if it's
you're gonna
unlocking,
say that.
but
yeah.
that
Because
means
we don't understand how that works. But
Right,
it's like
so-
if it's unlocking, maybe. So this is the real part. He saw two black guys up there and just said nigga.
Yeah.
like. So
Yeah,
is he?
that's
So
the
is he
word.
racist when he's not on
That's
the?
what- that's
you know
what
what I
I
mean?
mean-
I think there's this very big confusion about racism, and this is from the internet. So Malcolm in the film X, a white woman walks up to Malcolm and says, "Hey, what can I do to stop racism?" And in the film, the edited version, he says nothing, and he walks away. And that's a very poignant moment in the film. They shot another scene that's also a true story. I think it was on a college campus. And Malcolm's reply was like, "White woman, what can you do to help racism?" And his reply was, "I found that racism normally starts within the home."
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay?
Right.
So go back to your house and work on that. And that's the truth, right? So now there's this whole weird understanding of like what racism is around us. I think we have to remember that we are so bruised by this country that we see things in a lens of being bruised, of being hurt, of being hit out. But we forget that she just said cracker like it was nothing,
Yeah.
right? Because in her house at one point, someone was probably like, oh, fake. You know what I mean? But in their house, in that Tourette's dude's house, somebody said nigga.
Right.
Yes.
Because you got 1,000 white people. Like,
Or
look
just,
at-
or
look at the
just
family tree.
online. Like that's the thing. Like with Tourette's, like we all hear words all day. We know
Of
when
course.
to say them and when not to. You have Tourette's.
Some people.
You say the words that you hear all become fuel. Like
Right.
it all becomes now I have a repertoire of things I can say. Like it's a different
Fair.
their brain works differently.
Fair.
Is he a racist? I don't know that man.
Right.
A lot of people are racist. Most white people are racist.
Most people are.
So
No, most people
I
are.
just assume that
Most
when you
people
white,
are.
you're racist. You gotta prove me wrong.
I mean,
Most
this
people
but
dream was
that-
twofold though. So to the point of like, cool, we don't know if he's racist. He does
Mm-hmm.
have Tourette's. I do think that they should have had him in a different space. But
That's
cool.
where BAFTA and BBC should have stepped in because
and
it
the fact
kind
that
of
they didn't.
You
edit
think they
it.
did it on purpose?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm getting.
yeah, they
So,
seem
it's bigger than-
more racist than the nigga.
I was,
Tourette's.
and that's where I was going. Like,
Like,
if you
they
could have
more racist
edited
than-
this to make it where that's not even heard,
Yeah,
and you didn't, you the racist.
yeah, you're the racist. They're the racist.
What's the end goal, though? What's the end goal? What do you think the end goal is?
That's a good question.
That we don't care?
No.
Or
We always care. I think
No,
that
I'm talking about their end goal. If let's say it was purposeful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say they were like, yeah, we ain't gonna edit out, nigga. We gonna leave it in. Right? What's the goal?
To
Always embarrass
like,
us. I
Yeah,
think.
like to, and then also black
Create controversy.
rage
Yeah.
is like, you know, that's
Create
money. That
controversy.
creates money.
Even
for
so,
them,
this happened during
generates
Black
revenue.
History Month too,
Now,
right?
because we're talking
Yeah.
about it.
Right,
That's
exactly.
the end goal.
Yeah,
We're
Like,
talking about it.
now
I
we wanna-
posted about our 45th president way before he got elected. And I said, and I put up on my Facebook, it's not enough. And I wanted that to be a hashtag to be like, we can keep complaining about this shit.
Right,
But
but
it's
what's
not
the
enough
end
to
goal?
complain
Not
about
enough,
it.
yeah.
Because if you sit around like the secret, the universe, manifestation, all this shit says if you keep talking about something stays alive.
Yes,
It's like
true.
Candyman.
Yes.
Keep
True.
saying the name.
Yeah, it's gonna
You
keep-
keep saying, oh, racist, blah, 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 blah. You keep building fire.
Right.
That's
You
why
know what I
that
mean?
word really doesn't bother me.
Racist
You know what I'm saying?
or
No,
nigger?
Nigger. Like
I got you.
somebody calls me a nigger with a hard ER, it almost makes me laugh. Because it's just
You're trying
like,
to get the reaction from me.
like nigga, what?
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Right,
I'm
right.
a nigger. Now
Right.
what? Now what?
Yeah.
Like,
Speaking
what's happening
of-
now?
Speaking of N-words.
Right.
He said, speaking of niggas.
Speaking of niggas.
Uncle Luke announced he is running for Congress.
Oh man.
Now
Is he?
listen, here's the thing.
We out in Miami too.
If he wins and he doesn't have a celebratory situation and we're let me see you suck the thing. It's not gonna rock. I wanna rock. If you don't get that when he wins, but in that situation though, if he was to win a seat, the U gotta win the next 4 national championships.
Yeah.
They gotta party at his house. It has to be like
You gotta do this
we
the right
gonna
way.
get the Boondocks nigga moments that we missed with Obama. Obama had to be, you know what I'm saying? We gonna get what we want to get from Uncle Luke. We know Uncle Luke.
Yeah.
But think about him running for a seat and what Republicans would do to his background. Now, you take that and then you think about somebody like Donald Trump, his background.
Right. That's
Because
what I'm about to say.
right.
Yeah, like if Donald Trump could be president, Uncle Luke
Anybody
could be
can.
Exactly.
Isn't it crazy? Like I know we spoke about the dunk contest, and I know
Mhm.
I'm not trying to, but it was just like, yo, y'all letting anybody win at this
Absolutely.
point. It kind of waters it down. I mean, we're in the same space as
Mhm.
you know this presidency. but
Oh,
it's like-
100%. It's this guy came from reality TV and did that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, hip hop itself as a vehicle was used to talk about politics and things like that from the black experience. So Uncle Luke does have a little bit more experience in the political
During the
you know.
censorship era.
Exactly.
That's a
And
very
that's what-
big
yeah,
deal.
that's what- yeah.
That's
That
a
was a
very
They
big
went
deal.
to they went to
Yeah.
war for freedom of speech.
And
Yeah, and
that's
he
super
won.
fire.
And they won.
What?
He went not to war. He went to court.
Right.
But it's still-
But you get what I'm saying?
Like if you
Well,
think
Well, that's what I'm
about
saying. He
it,
went to war for
Supreme
freedom of
Court,
speech.
if
no.
you think about it, it
Right.
was war. That's
Yeah.
what I was talking to you earlier about my age. That was a crazy time.
Yeah.
Where like black
Things
folk
weren't
could have been
just-
taken off the airwaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, we got beef with all the moguls now. There's something wrong with all of them, right? In our community. But these dudes are trailblazers. We forget
Yeah.
that that's our civil rights era.
100%. Damn.
So with that said, I don't know who wrote this whole entire show, but I'm telling you, your through line is correct. Because the through line of black folk becoming a brand and doing something with it is us learning from, Ronald Reagan was freaking actor.
Yeah.
bro.
Oh yeah. Right.
Do you know what I mean? Donald Trump was a reality star. I
Right.
mean, he also had money. Like, all these people had money, so
Yeah.
it's like a little bit part of the difference. But yeah, man, I think that this country is becoming, again, ideology over facts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And Luther Campbell's name, I would check that baby in Miami.
The other good thing too is he's been on the right side of history. He's not like, a lot of some of our, people that we admire or whatever, they get older and all of
Yeah.
a sudden they start,
Doing the most.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like he's been like very on the ground in terms of just like everything that's been happening in politics.
Yeah.
He's very outspoken.
Mhm.
Champions the right candidates, etc. So I think that's great. And just also thinking about where he comes from, no better voice than somebody that's going to, battle with Congress and won, especially when you were talking freedom of speech.
Right. Did he say anything that was kind of like what his principles are right now?
I watched the clip. He said, "We gonna have some fun."
That was
I
it?
said, "All right,
All right. I
that's
see
exactly
what's
what I
going
expected
on
him to say."
All right, bet that.
All right, so another wild thing. J. Cole just recently dropped his long-awaited album, The Fall Off, and it did well, but then after that, he started selling his CDs out of the trunk of his car,
Right.
toured all over the place. There's some people that don't really care about it anymore. They kind of, Joe Budden, for example, was not feeling it. He was happy when the Honda broke down.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think about that?
So one, I thought that the project was dope. Let's start there. I thought
Oh,
like the
yeah.
music was really good. Not my favorite project from Cole.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
definitely I like the fact that he created an amazing body of work. You know what I mean? I don't like technically like things that go with gimmicks. And that's what that whole thing felt like. And I
Yeah.
feel like he kind of has like survivor's remorse, where it's like, he does like this whole like weird sweats and like the Crocs and, you know what I'm saying? Like, and if that's your style, that's your style. But it's like you doing so much to show, like, I don't give a fuck about the money, then give it away. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you got the bread to go pull up in a Lambo truck and still do your CD run, do that. But to
Right.
get an old ass Civic that's like, I guess like that was his mom's car back in the day. I don't know the
Yeah,
full story
something like
about
that,
the
yeah.
Civic, but I'm just going, you doing a lot to show us like, I'm one of y'all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't jacking it for that
I don't
reason.
see it that way. J. Cole doesn't give me that. I think he's just playing on the nostalgia of it all, and he's
Yeah.
like, and then it also it's like branding, right? Like this album is really about the survivor's remorse, me going back to Fayetteville,
Yeah.
me telling stories about being a celebrity now and reaching success, but I came from nothing. So it's like, oh, let me get the Honda Civic, let me ride around in the busted Honda Civic like old days. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I don't feel like it's gimmicky because J. Cole always has that aura about him. He never gave flashy. Never gave.
But I'm not saying that he had to give all flashy. But what I'm just trying to get to is like, if your intent was to connect with the people and like, be forward facing and like, complete that mission. Like, it don't have to be wrapped up in a fucked up Honda Civic, which I think also the breakdown was planned.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I also, like, if it was like, y'all saw like the monks that was kind of like going through. Like,
they walked.
Yeah, like,
that's crazy, man.
you know what I'm saying? Like, if we doing that,
Yeah.
where it's like,
Yeah.
this is, wholeheartedly, and people are on the way helping you and doing certain things, cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if you just like, I'm gonna do this for the sake of it, I'm with the nostalgia. I love nostalgia. I love like feeling like something that made me feel some ways ago. But the whole idea of I had to do this in this busted ass Civic, I still don't even know. Like, if this was Kendrick's van, we all know the van. I don't know anybody that knows the Civic.
I think the branding just isn't strong. Like, I think he just doesn't have those people on his team to kind of develop the visual story of things and the physical
So
story.
it just
to
wasn't
connect it with the
executed the
album.
correct.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Because
And also,
maybe that
I
was
think
the
they're just not
exact one,
that
though.
creative.
I think
You know
that's
what I mean?
that's
I think- I think
in
what's
your
lacking-
opinion.
Huh?
In your opinion.
You thought
Absolutely.
it was creative?
You listen, I think y'all know my position. Okay? What's the real thing going on in music? Are these artists making money from these streams? Are these artists connecting? Like,
Right.
the music system is really messed up.
Right.
Like, everybody's trying to figure it out.
Right,
We have
right.
an artist.
He's also independent. Like,
He's
Yeah.
indie.
Yeah.
We have an
Yeah.
artist come out saying that they was broke the whole entire time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
they've been saying that for
Yeah, that's a fact.
bruh, it's hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everyone's trying to cut through, and we have a deluge of information.
Yeah.
People can watch this podcast instead of listening to J. Cole right now.
Yeah.
At a
Right.
drop. You know what I mean?
Right,
So he
right.
competing with us. right now in a lot of ways.
Right.
You know?
I think they're each making valid points where it can kind of come off gimmicky, but also it went along with the album, so I agreed there too.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of, you know, he's playing both ways when you're saying
that's
like,
what I'm asking. Like, was this full story? Like, that's what I'm just trying to understand. Why do we need the Civic? Like, maybe that's the part where I'm missing. It's like, why the Civic?
There was in the I think in his first mixtape, I think it's tied to
the
that.
warm up with
The vehicle for connection.
I think this is an age gap issue between the generations of hip hop in general, because there's always going to be a backstory, but you never go to like Paris and go to the Louvre and see a painting and be like, oh, I don't get where this came from. You know what I mean? Like honor art is art.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
True.
That's my opinion. I'm a little bit older than y'all, so I'm from a position of like, yo, for these artists, it's so hard.
Yeah.
So any artistry, you know how long it took me as a comic to like really post some of my stuff?
Yeah.
Because I talk wild shit on stage
Absolutely.
that is not my real life.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right,
Like if
I
I
feel
post a clip right now, you're gonna think I'm the craziest motherfucker in the whole entire world. But it's some shit I've seen throughout my 20-something years in New York City.
Yeah.
You know, but I think the artistry has to come up, because since the business model of streaming and music and TV and everything we talked about, the freaking the whatchamacallit, the people buying other people, right? The only thing that matters is that for us, the thing that really matters is that our artistry creates dollars quickly.
That's a fact.
Right?
I'm even down to this point too, my fault.
No, you good.
So I'm glad I heard the story, but the other part of it is, you know how he did like the small mixtape before the album actually came out, which was like that nostalgia feel, which felt like the Desert Storm mixtapes back in the day. I actually did love that.
I love that too.
Yeah, like I love the idea. Like what made me want to rap in the beginning is hearing like Fab and Ransoms and Joe Buttons on these tapes. It was like it would make your heart and buying them from like the homie that's, you know, selling them,
dude,
selling them. You get 2 for $5 on Fridays. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I like that. It's so much that's going on that part, I wish that story was told, I guess, a little bit more. And to your point, like maybe like the marketing wasn't executed all of the right way.
I was going to say with the marketing piece, I think if he did the, you know, out of the trunk sales and stuff, if he was doing like a HBCU tour or something like that, and they're doing that in addition to it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like something that, in that way, to your point we were saying before about touching the people, that's the way he would do it.
Even, you know, when Hove had the Brooklyn Museum when it was locked down,
Right.
So remember he had like the Lexus outside. Super tough. Like, you know what I'm saying? But you gotta know Hove from the Lexus. Like you gotta know that is that
to get it.
You know what I'm saying? Like so it is. I'm not gonna sit here and say is like a horrible idea. I just think that there could be a way to like execute.
Yeah, I just think it was. Honestly, it kind of felt like, yo, let's do this. Like it was like an idea that he had on Monday, and they hopped in the whip on, you know.
I also, and I know we're trying to go somewhere else, but I also like the idea of, yo, for that mixtape, he made it where you had to go through a site. You could either pay $1 or let's say $1,000. I love that because when I first started, it was like, yo, Bandcamp. And you can make it where, like, this is before you had to actually have like a distro in order to get your shit on iTunes and X, Y, and Z. So if you don't got that, how you supposed to get to the masses? Niggas ain't doing CDs no more. You trying to get on that piff or whatever the case might be. But he does bring it back to that element of why we so sold on it got to be on Spotify, it got to be on Apple, it got to be on these platforms, and then I got to show my numbers so that you can believe I'm lit. Opposed to being like, fuck y'all seeing what I'm actually doing. I'm getting paid through people that actually fuck with me, even if it's 3 people and they all giving me X, Y, and Z. So I do like that idea of, you know what I'm saying? Like,
business is going to become more commerce to commerce, more people to commerce anyway. In my opinion. It's going to become that.
Hell
you know what I mean? Because we all just trying to get money.
Hell yeah. Very true. Very, very, very true.
Okay, so this segment is called Who Asked for This? And this is where we talk about things like, we didn't really ask for this, but we got it. So,
fair.
First thing, 106 in Sports recently got canceled. It was a BET reboot of 106 in Park, but it was sports. It was Cam Newton and Ashley Nicole Moss. It was canceled. They put a lot of money into that show.
It looked good.
So what do we think about that? Bringing it back. I think it's kind of tough to reinvent the wheel sometimes, but what do y'all think?
Call it something else. I think 106 in Sports, the title alone turned me off. But I still wanted to see it. I just didn't get a chance.
I haven't
to
seen
see
any
if it was
clips.
actually good.
Yeah, like
I
I'm
am
trying to
a
figure out where
full
was
on. It's on BT.
I would hope so.
I'm a full on TV producer, and I have to tell you that one of the hardest things to get done is for someone to say yes to funding a project.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Easiest thing
I'm a
to-
producer as well. I get it.
You produce. Okay.
Absolutely.
So the easiest thing to get done is funding a project that already has
Familiarity,
some legs.
yeah.
Yeah.
because
I just hate
we call it the tile universe, right? Like when you go on your Apple TV or whatever,
Yeah.
your Roku, whatever, there's so much.
Yeah.
So the only reason you watch it if that tile looks appealing to you. So if
Yeah.
it says 106, you just gotta understand that from a business model point of view. Is if it would have said like BET Sports presents. Stay with me here for a second, because I'm starting to agree with you actually on the name thing. On the name thing. As watching it, I'm agreeing with you on the name, and I'll tell you why. Did anybody stay with me? Anybody watch Bel Air, the new Bel Air?
Yeah.
Peacock, did you like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did
And
like it, actually.
what I love about it is that it is a retake
Yes.
with a slightly different name
Yeah.
that dealt with N-word in the locker room.
Yeah.
Right? My favorite character, speaking of Drake, is the Carlton character.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That is a very
Yeah.
good character.
Well,
Yeah,
complex,
Black
all
man
of that.
who grows
yeah.
up in the suburbs, he's not corny.
Right.
Yeah.
He might be the head of the fucking everything.
Right.
Will might need him to get into the cool kids.
100%.
I think they took a nouveau spin to something that we loved in the 90s
Yeah.
and didn't make it man and they
Yeah.
made it urban new
Yeah.
and like
I
even
did
in the
like the
pool
take on
parties
that.
and Will's girlfriend, all that was great. I think that's where they messed up here. I think what often happens when people do a remake because they do the
try to
same
do the
fucking
same.
thing.
Same thing.
That's the same set. We
Yeah.
all saw it when it popped up. We was like, that's
Yeah.
the same. You used to work there, bro. That's the same set.
Yeah.
I've called shots on that set. They recreated the same thing. Whereas if they would have said, yo, how do we make it better?
Right.
How do we make it like people? I know a lot of people at BT are gonna be pissed, but like you should have called me. Like, how do we make it the podcast energy that made Shannon Sharp a monster with Cat Williams?
Right.
Maybe you don't need that audience in that shot right there.
Yeah.
Maybe you're too far away from them in that wide shot because that doesn't feel like
Yeah,
I'm
it
rocking
doesn't
with
feel
them.
close.
No, absolutely.
No, because in a podcast, this camera's right there, bro. You can see my eyes.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at like a set.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It looks like I'm performing at like a
Yeah.
convention center.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know, which was cool back in the day, right?
And the thing is, I don't know how you fix it. Like, what makes it? You know what I mean?
Same
Like,
thing happened with Yo MTV Raps, bro. My people's the Yo
oh
MTV
yeah,
Raps.
yep.
And they dolled it up and they made it very, very pretty. My people shoot very well. Shout out to Holland West, man. It's a dope ass company, man. Those are my guys, man. But I think what's happening in the world is I directed a show for the BBC a very long time ago, and it's the first time I got a jib out and a helicopter and all this shit. And my executive came in from London. She watched it and she said, "There's no story here." She said, "This looks good. I think that
story.
looks good.
Yeah.
But what's
Yeah.
the fucking story?"
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Maybe-
where's the hook?
So
Where's
we put all our
Yeah.
energy into technically how it looks opposed to like,
Diamond
the
pants,
substance.
bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think
I feel
actually,
it.
I think one thing they could have done.
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
You know what I'm saying? The image matters. You know what I'm saying? He definitely got more money than me. You know what I'm saying? There's diamonds on that. You know what I mean? You're not
I
cubic.
feel it. I feel it,
My
right.
eyes been glinting the whole time. You know?
I'm
But
trying
you
to
got
see
your
who's
own
walking.
POV that
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
remember you for the diamond pants
Yeah.
and your own POV. So that's
Yeah.
what they should have done there.
No, that's a fact. I will say this with any brand, like what really carries it, right, is technically like the story in itself.
Yeah,
So I
people
think
gotta
that
say, yo, what
you
the fuck was that?
gotta do that. But that's
I
always
think,
missed.
Yeah, I think if they they changed the format of the show. If it's not Ash and just Cam,
Yeah.
but they broaden it, more hosts or whatever.
Yeah.
And
They
or
can
like
get
a
deep into
something.
sports.
Yeah,
we love
like-
Yeah,
sports.
for sure.
Yeah.
America,
I think-
like, because some executive was like, oh, everybody likes sports. We love sports.
We do
Yes.
love sports.
Even if you don't like sports, you like
There's,
sports.
there's so many layers they could do within sports.
Is it
Like,
over?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it's
8
like-
episodes and they canceled it.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
actually have a
Let's
sports
not
show
make another
that
one.
I don't
Yeah,
want to
right.
give too much of the format out because it's what they could have
Yeah,
did that I
you
think
don't.
would have been successful. But I need to eat, so we are now going to wrap up ourselves. But yeah, until next week when we got more crazy shit going on, we'll see y'all then.